Hello and welcome to the Supernatural Track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Z. Martin, and tonight we are talking about The Roads Not Taken for Season 6. What could have happened but didn't? What plot threads did the writers toss out there and then apparently forget about? What could have gone a different way, and where might that have taken the Winchesters? We're going to go down all those alternate routes, but first let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Carole.
Hi, I'm Carole Stokes. I've been a fan of Supernatural since season 3. I started writing fanfic in 2012, and I'm one of the co-hosts of the podcast, So Get This, The Lore of Supernatural Fanfic, available on Spotify.
Very good. Melissa.
Hi, I'm Melissa and Kitty, and I've been a fan of the show since 2005, and Kitty's been a fan of the show since 2023.
Very good. Lola.
My name's Lola Lariscy. I'm a writer, and I have been a fan of Supernatural since episode 1.
And Elektra.
I'm Elektra Hammond. I'm a writer and an editor, and I too have been a fan since that very first episode aired and sucked me right in. Unfortunately, Spot is not a fan, and she has toddled off.
And I'm Gail Z. Martin and Morgan Bryce. As Gail, I write epic and urban fantasy. As Morgan, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. But all my modern worlds are ones Sam and Dean could walk into and feel right at home. I fell in love with the show halfway through season 11, binge watched 11 seasons in 4 months for the start of season 12, went down the rabbit hole, and haven't looked back since then. So I'm pretty much what you'd call an obsessed fan.
Oh,
maybe a little bit, but one of the things Carole mentioned fan fiction, and one of the things that is very big in fan fiction are alternate universe. In other words, what could have happened but didn't, or where could they have gone? And that's kind of what we're exploring here. So let's go around, pick one thing each time so we can do multiple rounds, but I'm very interested in seeing how you think season 6 could have gone differently. Carole?
Let's start with the very first episode, Exile on Main Street. Dean's living with Ben, he finds out Sam's alive. Wackiness ensues. What if, despite Dean missing his brother very, very deeply, he decided he liked living with Lisa and he liked having a normal apple pie life? I'm just saying it's a what if thing. I'm not saying that's what I would want, but what if he, in fact, he never really had that. He had it for a few weeks at Sunny's, but that's it. He's never had it the rest of his life that he can really remember, because really, even when he was little, by the age of 4, that's really when your memories are coming online to begin with. So even his memories of that time are very just like faint, scattered images. So what if in this first time where he isn't constantly fighting for his life, or, sleeping in sleazy, awful hotel rooms that you don't want to think about what the stains are, what if he really liked living that life with a beautiful, intelligent woman who adores him? And now, if you want, you can go one step further. And what if Ben is really his son?
mm-hmm.
But whether or not, that's kind of like an additional what if. Mm-hmm. So whether or not Ben, even if Ben wasn't his son, what if Dean really likes this life? And so then when he meets Sam, he's really conflicted, because he knows that saving people and hunting things is an important job. And he does want to have, his brother in his life. But what if he's like, what do I do? I want to be here, but I want to be there. And, that could have put a whole different spin on that entire season.
They need a house with a mother-in-law apartment to install Sam in. And then,
there are they can, that happens. Yes.
Then they can go off hunting when they need to, but they can get lots of home-cooked meals.
You go.
And if Garth can do it, anyone can do it.
And he's a werewolf besides.
He's a werewolf. Yeah. He
Yeah.
eats people.
He's a church-going werewolf. If he can do
Mhm.
it, anyone can.
Right.
Well,
I've got to take
What-
the dog out, so I'm going to pass this to Melissa and have it go around to Lola and Elektra, and I will be back as quickly as they can get me back here.
Good luck.
good luck with that. Live free or try hard. What if there wasn't a cure? Like Dean gets turned as a vampire. What if there wasn't a cure? This is a common thing, Dean becoming a vamp in fanfic is not uncommon. Would Sam have turned too, and the boys could have just kept on hunting, or and then have all the hunter community chasing them? I think a vampire Dean or a vampire Sam and Dean would be amazing hunters. The only catch is they just have to find a way to get blood, and there were some really, really good fanfics where that's exactly what happens.
They can always go the route Lenore went and drink, either other animal blood, that kind of thing.
Or work
Ian's
at the blood bank.
vegetarian?
Blood bank.
Oh, vegetarian.
Blood bank.
vampires.
And before I pass it, I'm going to go back to Carol's what if for the Exile on Main Street. What if Bobby had told Dean right away that Sam was back, or Sam had gone to Dean immediately? Because Dean went to Lisa right around the same time that Sam came back. So there wouldn't have been that strong connection between whatever strong connection there was between Dean and Lisa. I'm not buying it, but whatever. But there wouldn't have been time for them to have settled in. So I wonder, what would have happened then? We would have avoided all that nonsense with the Campbells because Sam wouldn't have gone there because he would have had Dean, and we would have erased so much of the stuff this season that just didn't work. So, and now I'll pass it along.
Or Sam and Dean would have gone together to the Campbells, and that would have
Right.
turned things very differently too.
Yes, very true.
Lola.
Okay, so mine, I had silly answers, but I thought I better think of a serious answer. So mine is 6:17, My Heart Will Go On. Of course, that's where, Balthazar keeps the Titanic from crashing because he really hates Celine Dion's song, My Heart Will Go On, which I understand. So what if he really hated Ben Affleck, which I could also understand, and he decided he never wanted the movie Pearl Harbor to exist? What would he do? He would go back in time and stop the Japanese from ever attacking Pearl Harbor. Now that would have a cascading effect because many people believe that's what got the United States into World War II. So if Pearl Harbor had never been attacked, would we be speaking German? Because, we're the ones who, well, for better or for worse, we were the ones who had the final action that ended the war. Or would, it still be raging in Europe? Maybe we would have cut off ties from Europe and we'd have been like, we're just going to let them do their thing. Or would we have, somebody eventually won? Maybe, the English would have pulled it off or something. Or maybe we would have eventually gotten into the war. But in this scenario, Pearl Harbor, the movie, never existed because Balthazar went back in time and he told somebody that the Japanese were going to hit Pearl Harbor.
Okay.
Or maybe
Supernatural meets oh my gosh, it just left my head. Man in the High Castle.
I love Man in the High Castle. That's kind of what got me the idea.
Supernatural
Or maybe
meets Man in the High Castle.
or maybe instead they hit something even more precious to us, something actually on mainland. But instead of having Pearl Harbor the movie, we have San Diego the movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio, and Balthazar is okay with that for whatever reason.
Elektra, how about you?
A little one from that first episode. Dean drives a beige pickup. What if, he discovers he really loves pickup trucks? I mean, the Impala is great, but it's so noticeable. And a beige pickup is so unnoticeable that forevermore he drives a beige pickup because it's so much easier to be unnoticed in it. And he keeps the Impala around just, you know, for when he wants to have fun driving and he uses the truck for work, you know. Just a quick thought. Weekend at Bobby's, it becomes real obvious that he and Jody have developed a somewhat working relationship. What if after that he drags Jody into hunting and she becomes part of the hunting network much earlier?
Then she might not have the school for wayward girls though, so that could
Well,
totally
I
dispel
don't
that.
okay.
see why
I
that
don't-
stops her. I think she just gets more experience earlier.
Okay.
And you know, maybe gets friendlier with Bobby, and maybe the two of them are there helping the boys when they need it.
And maybe the home for wayward girls turns into a home for wayward children, and you can have boys and girls.
And maybe
Yard
when
has a
the
lot of property
disastrous events of season 7 happen, maybe they're not as bad because it's her and Bobby there instead of just Bobby going there to help out Sam and Dean.
More people are always better. More good people.
I'm sorry, I always try to make these more hopeful,
That's
or at
okay.
least sillier.
We are talking about supernatural.
Yeah, really.
Well, yeah, but
That's okay.
supernatural can be silly.
That's right. It absolutely can be. So I'm going to go for a big what if, and that is, you know, we find out much later that Soulless Sam is soulless because Cass brought him back wrong. Cass did not bring his soul back, and then Cass kind of sort of lied about that. And so that's why Dean doesn't find out about Sam being soulless and why he's soulless, and then that leads to the whole first half of the season. What if Cass had done it right the first time? What if Cass hadn't lied about it? So from the very beginning of the season, Dean's like, I'm grateful that you got part of him out. Anything is good. But now, if he knew much earlier that he had to go back and somehow get Sam's soul. And if Cass hadn't been such a frenemy, because for most of this season, you can't really call him a friend.
He's an enemy. He's a megalomaniac. He's gone crazy.
He's doing a lot of stuff that he shouldn't be doing, and not necessarily in the Winchesters' interests. And so that could have definitely played with a number of plot threads in the series if Cass had just stayed true to being a friend instead of kind of going off on some of his tangents. Carole, back to you.
That would have been a big game changer. I liked the reference on Weekend at Bobby's that what if Jody entered hunting then? I had that one down too, but I was like, what if Bobby didn't get his soul back? Because at this point, Bobby doesn't have a soul.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, because that's why the boys are off to get like Crowley's bones, because they want to strong arm him into letting Bobby have his soul back. So what if Bobby doesn't get his soul back, and we see, and so we never see him quite as cold as Soulless Sam.
Question. I thought it was he made a deal to trade his soul, blah, blah, blah. But it was after he died. I didn't take it that. I thought it was like a regular demon
Like
deal
Crossroads thing.
yeah, like a crossroads. It was a crossroads deal.
Right.
So
it was before Crowley
didn't-
was the king.
Right. So he didn't lose his soul the way Sam did. It was when
Oh,
he
that's
died.
true. He bargained
Crowley
it
would get.
away.
But I really do like your idea. What if?
Yeah.
What if it was
he
his
stayed
actual
soulless?
soul?
Well,
And then a side note, instead of him getting with Jody, what if he finally got to eat the cobbler and get with the
Oh,
neighbor?
yeah.
What if the
crazy
neighbor was okay with, she wasn't thrilled about being covered with blood from the monster going through the wood chipper, but he saved her life.
And she's kind of kinky.
So
Kinky like that.
I don't know about that.
She's like, I'm okay with it. Where's your dungeon? And he's like, no, it's not like that. I know.
That's a whole different avenue. I wasn't going to go down. What if he gets with the neighbor and gets to eat the cobbler? And there's our moment of hopefulness that, you know,
And then there's the
Sandra
American
could have
Pie
had a
moment
of
with the
joy.
cobbler. Yeah.
Well, and what if, you know, it could have turned out that she wasn't as innocent as she seemed, and she was actually some sort of supernatural creature or witch or something. And so she was just fine with Bobby being a hunter and, you know, helping out. So, you know,
I think we have a Mrs. Butters situation, except for Mrs. Butters is a little kinky. And, you know, she makes cobblers, but she expects more than eating to be done with them. She makes them very penetrable.
let's leave that thought right there and go back to Melissa, if Melissa can speak.
She's kinky. It's a small town.
I'm fanning her.
In keeping with Sam and his soul, appointment in Samara, what if Death couldn't actually get Sam's soul back? Like it was missing, or, you know, he just couldn't do it. Or what if he brought Sam's soul back, but Sam's soul was whole? It wasn't damaged the way it was. Like, that would have, we wouldn't have had the whole thing with Sam, you know, being so incapacitated and having to put the wall in, and then Cass breaking it. There would have been lots of ripple effects. Or I just like the idea of Sam staying soulless for a little longer, because that was an interesting take. So I'd go with, you know, Dean wasn't.
What if Death just decides not to do it? He's just like, yeah, it sucks to be you, you know, and wanders off into the sunset.
Because Dean didn't actually complete the task that he was assigned to do for Death to complete the bargain. So what if Death had just been like, well, you didn't do it, Dean. You didn't do a good job being me, so I'm not getting his soul back for him.
He screwed it up. He caused the death of a lady who should have had grandchildren. All this line is just gone. She should have had grandchildren, and, you know, he probably caused the deaths of thousands of people.
Okay. Lola?
All right. So 611, appointment in Samara. So this is just the first part. They go to a quasi doctor because who's almost dying? Somebody's almost dying. Is it Sam?
Dean wants to temporarily die so he can go talk to
that ties into what we were talking about. It's the same episode. Duh.
So he goes to Freddy Krueger.
That's what I was gonna say. What if we find out that really is Freddy Krueger? And he does something really weird to Dean, and now he has all these things in his dreams, like creepy crawly spiders that, you know, tear him apart and things like that. Or, oh my God, what if Dean becomes Freddy Krueger?
What if Dean becomes Ben Affleck?
Oh, that would be even worse. Oh my God, that would be horrible. And then he'd be Batman and all that stuff. One of the worst Batmans. I'm sorry.
Dean would be Batman.
But he would be Batman.
Dean would be
Batman.
Yeah, he already is Batman. Oh my God, my brain just broke.
Okay.
Can he be Batman twice? How can you be Batman?
I don't know.
He can be Batman and Robin, which is just weird. But
Elektra?
And a fifth was born.
how about The French Mistake?
Very good.
Where they discover, you know, Sam decides that, you know, this acting thing isn't that bad. It's fun being rich. And, you know, he kind of likes Jen. And maybe he doesn't want to go back. I mean, hunting it's a grind. It's and you know, they've got an alpaca in the backyard, and he's got a really nice wife, and he's rich.
Nice
house.
He's
got a black MX card.
And,
yeah,
you know, and he starts talking to Dean about maybe they should stay. And let those other guys do the hunting, at least for a while.
And where's the real Jared Padalecki and Jensen Ackles?
Well, presumably back in their spot doing the hunting for them. And if we can do this acting thing, I bet they can do the hunting thing. They've been practicing it for
they would have a leg up on it, because at least they've been pretending to be hunters. Dean and Sam hadn't been pretending to be actors. So
pretending to be hunters. Surely they know how.
Yeah. I mean, as long as they have a stand-in, you know, and
They'll be
fake weapons
fine.
work, they'll be fine. Now,
Yeah.
see, I would see that. I want to see that. We had something close when Richie, Dean and Richie Sam came over. That was fun with
Mhm.
the sweater and everything.
The Rich Chesters, yes.
Yep, that was fun. I would like to see more of that too.
What if they had spent more time developing the mother of all? You know, Eve popped in and out for like 2 episodes, and I thought that that was more abrupt than it needed to be. We really never got much of an impact of her as a big bad. And yet she was kind of setting up the whole purgatory thing, the whole Leviathan thing. And that also makes me think, you know, what if after spending half of season 6 and most of season 7 trying to talking about purgatory, Sam had remembered purgatory existed when Dean disappeared and thought, you know, it's kind of like looking for your car keys in the freezer. He's probably not there, but I'm just going to rule it out anyhow because I've looked everywhere else. Because they spent half of season 6 and most of season 7 talking about purgatory. So, you know, I would have liked to have seen the writers remember that they did that and carry that forward with a little more connection, because it just seemed like somebody had, you know, not only Lisa and Ben lost their memories, but maybe some of the writers' room did as well. When it comes to
They
purgatory,
lost that big sheet off the big writing
somebody
pad.
erased their whiteboard or something. Yeah,
And they still could have had Dean in purgatory with Benny and Cass and all of that, because it could have taken Sam a long time to figure out how to get into purgatory. Like,
right.
you know, we could have been searching, and then we wouldn't have had the whole amnesia Amelia thing.
Or
Amelia didn't
even
really
even
happen.
once he gets into purgatory, I mean, it's a big place.
Right.
We could have Dean doing his thing, and Sam's over here trying to find out where Dean is in
Yes.
purgatory. It's not like
That
there's
would have been really interesting.
Or
there's
maybe
no GPS for purgatory.
Or maybe Crowley, maybe Amelia really should have been a witch, and Crowley paid her to hex Sam and take away his memories so that he wasn't successful getting Dean out of purgatory because Crowley had designs on purgatory. I would have gone for Amelia as the evil witch who, you know, hexes Sam much faster. But that's season 8. We'll get to that.
what if he was just looking for a spell to see if Dean was in purgatory?
That would be a start.
Yeah.
There could have been lots of things there.
Could have been a lot of things, but we have the crux of that. The whole beginning of the purgatory storyline starts in season 6, and then the writers seem to forget about the
We've already
details
been there
as it goes on. So yeah, just a better handling of the purgatory storyline.
Eve was so overpowered, they didn't know how to deal with her.
Yeah. She showed up, and for supposedly being the mother of all things big and bad, she wasn't.
They took her down pretty
It was
easy.
a bust. Yeah.
Well, like all things, there was a way to kill her.
Yeah.
But she was doing so much damage, they needed to get her quickly.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, she was just going to leave such a mark on the map that people were going to notice. And they didn't have a cleaning group like the Men of Letters did to come through and sanitize things.
On the blacklist, they always have like.
You know, really, they should have looked up. They should have got a crime scene cleaners, you know, group and just kind of brought them into the fold, and that really was. They could have used that. Carole, back to you.
Oh gosh, what if in Family Matters, and we're really dealing now with the Campbells, we've met Grandpa Campbell, we've met, you know, the snarky cousin, the sexy cousin, the couple of cousins that were practically like red shirts on Star Trek because we saw them and then they were dead. But what if the Campbells had been like decent? What if they had really been allies? You know, what if Samuel wasn't just, as we ultimately find out, conniving to try and get his daughter back, but, you know, genuinely enthusiastic and happy that he has these big, strong hunter grandsons, and they, you know, pooled all their resources and really worked together. I mean, that would have been so powerful, you know, to see a real, we are, you know, have an organized group.
Extended family.
Yeah, it would have been terrific. It would have been a powerhouse. And then ultimately, because it is supernatural and it would have had to go down, it would have been so impactful. Samuel could have been a hero instead of being horrible.
Instead
poor
of
Mitch
being
Pileggi
two-faced.
played the heck out of that character, but you know, Samuel was not a good guy. So that could have been so cool. I would really, really have enjoyed that. You know,
And they all still could have died by the end of the season because, you know, Sam and
Right.
Dean soldier on alone, but we didn't have to hate them.
Right, exactly. They didn't have to be awful, and they didn't have to turn out to be playing with the bad guys and, you know, double crossing Sam and Dean and all of that. Yeah, that could have been really, really interesting and juicy.
Okay. Melissa.
Let's see. And then there were none. What if Bobby didn't kill Rufus? Okay, because if Bobby doesn't kill Rufus there, then later on, when they lose Bobby, they would have at least had an older, wise, trustworthy hunter to go to for the Bobby stuff, you know, the help us figure this out, because Rufus had the same kind of knowledge, that it was always implied that Rufus had this pretty much the same level of knowledge as Bobby. That's why they fought, and wasn't Rufus the one who taught Bobby about hunting to begin with? So I just think it would have been really cool for the guys to have had that resource later on. And it wouldn't have, he didn't even have to be on screen. It could have been phone calls. It could have been, you know, I sent him an email, blah, blah, blah. He never would have been their father figure the way Bobby was, plus parenting. But they would have at least had that resource of somebody that they trust, someone who could have, and who also could have connected them with other trustworthy hunters to help them with whatever it was they needed help with.
They
Okay.
needed
Rufus was
somebody.
such a great character.
I loved his character.
And another
That was-
X-Files alum.
Yeah.
That was the spinoff that I wanted. Young Rufus and young Bobby, or younger, like they could have been in their 30s or whatever, hunting. That would have been really cool to see.
Like Lethal Weapon, but supernatural. I would have liked that.
I would have even gone for, you know, middle-aged Bobby and Rufus in a spin-off, you know, grumpy old men kill monsters. You know, it still would have been fun to watch them grump at each other and still, you know, shoot the monsters.
They would have wanted the younger guys for that demographic,
That
but what they
CW.
could have done was the grumpy old men, but lots of flashbacks with two younger actors playing those guys. We could have, like, they could have been arguing at the bar over what happened about on such and such a hunt, and then we could have flashed back to the guys when they were younger doing that hunt.
Plus, there'd
would
be
have been
It would have
kinda
been
cool.
nothing like what they were arguing about.
Right.
There'd be lots of other hunters they'd be interacting with, so we could certainly have other young men hunters, and you know, we still could have had Jody and everything, and still had that whole side of things. Yeah.
Well,
That
it
would
could
That
have
would
been
have
like
been fun.
It could have been like Marlon Perkins on Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, where he stands back at a safe distance and sends Jim, the hunky young guy in khakis, to go wrestle the alligator. So Bobby and Rufus stay at the bar where they're safe.
It's more like an office comedy, workplace comedy, you know.
But
They're just
they
at home.
send the hunky disposable hunters of the week out to kill the monsters, and then, you know, they get the report afterwards, but they stayed safe at the bar or the safe house or whatever. Yeah. Lola, how about you?
Okay, So episode 21, Let It Bleed. This has our favorite character, Lisa. This is when Lisa and Ben are kidnapped by what's his name? Oh my God. You know who I'm talking. Mark Shepard.
Crowley.
Crowley. Thank you. I kept trying to say Castiel, and I'm like, he was there though. So they're kidnapped by Crowley. So there's a point towards the end where Lisa is possessed by a demon, and it sounds kind of cool. I mean, she's all like Crowley and wild eyes and stuff, and I'm like, at that moment, I liked her, and I'm like, what if she stayed a demon, and she could have been a good foil for them, and it would have been like in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Everyone hated Brett Dalton's character because he was kind of, milk toast. But then when he turned out not to be what they thought, suddenly everybody liked him. So it could be like that. All of a sudden, Lisa is a demon, and she's like, their foil, and she's around for a few episodes, and everyone's like, where's Ben? Is he just at home alone? What's going on? And that might redeem Lisa, maybe, until she gets killed.
Lisa is the new Ruby. Elektra?
Yeah.
Frontierland. What if Colt had been like, you're hunters. All right, what can I do to help you? Like, he had been totally on board with the time travel thing and had just been super helpful and super into it. And they'd been able to just like totally fanboy at him, and then gotten down to the business of what they were there for. And he'd given them some nuggets of how he'd made the cult and, interesting pieces of information they didn't have that maybe was useful in the future. And he'd become like another source. Maybe he told them where to find something that he was going to hide, or, I always leave my stuff here, and they go find it in the future.
Could have taught them how to cast the bullets too.
Yeah, they figure that out later, but yeah, it would have been nice to have a shortcut to that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, once again, Samuel Colt was a terrific one episode character, but it or maybe he left them diaries where they because he was able, maybe they were in code, and because they met him, they could decode them, and they had access to stuff that nobody else would have had. So yeah, would have liked to have seen that.
Because they had the one diary.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he started putting more stuff in his diary after he met them.
Right, with the idea that he had told them, after I die, I want you to look here, and I will leave my diaries for you. So yeah, he was almost sort of like, trying to think of the movie, I can't think of the name of it, but where they start leaving notes to each other across time, the Dennis Quaid movie.
Frequency.
Thank you. Yes. So yeah, it could have been a frequency kind of thing. Carol?
There's just so many yummy things, and gosh, we already talked about the Titanic not sinking. So even in Frontierland, what if they got stuck there? What if Cass couldn't bring them back?
He would be thrilled.
Yeah. And then you have to, adjust to living their life in the Old West. Poor Sam has to learn to live without any internet. And they have to kind of stop themselves from inventing too much stuff, a la Star Trek, because they don't want to alter the course of society's development and mankind's development, but they can't help making some improvements and helping things. So, what kind of lives would they have gone on to,
They would still
Dean
have
would have been happy to be the sheriff, but what would Sam have done? Would he become a doctor? Would he have become, would he have built the first library out west? I mean, I think that would have been, that would be a really fun AU. I've read AUs where they just are it's not a time travel thing. They're just in the Old West. And those have been really, really fun and everything. But now let's think about what if it's, our Sam and Dean from now back then, you know, they already, in the brief time they were there, realized how much more primitive and everything it was in terms of like, you know, when Dean downs that shot of whiskey and it's like, you know, practically turpentine and stuff, and the state of the saloon girls' dental hygiene.
Well,
So,
see, you know, if they got stuck there, they might have gone to Independence and run into the Walker Independence
oh my
crowd
gosh, that is so great.
and go, you know, that saloon keeper looks a lot like Crowley. And
If only
Melissa-
we knew someone who to write fan fiction.
Melissa,
Got
you
it.
have to save that and remind me of it later.
Got it. I've got it. I've
and
got it,
you
I've
know,
got it.
they'd have gotten on great with the Pinkerton agent, and they would have had the number of the slimy sheriff right off the bat. You know, I could see that working out real well. Yeah. Melissa is taking notes.
She knows a month from now I'm going to be like, remember in that panel we were talking about that thing?
A
You
thing in
can always watch the panel.
the thing in the panel. Yeah, that's true.
But you have to remember what panel it was and
panel.
that you did something.
Melissa, back to you.
Okay. Well, since we're on Frontierland, what if Dean didn't wear that serape?
And had looked more genuine. What if he'd have let Sam actually research what real people at the time wore so that he was period authentic? Yes. Very
That's it.
good.
That's what I got.
Okay. Lola?
All right, so I'm back to Let It Bleed, and it's part of it is about H.P. Lovecraft. He did Cthulhu, and in the episode he had let in 1937 he had let Purgatory open, and that's when Dr. Visiak came through, and she's you know, she's not a bad person, she's just kind of like, I'm out of purgatory, okay. So, you know, whatever, she possessed Eleanor or whatever. What if Cthulhu had come through? In 1937, Cthulhu comes and like kills everybody and is roaming the halls of, I don't know where Lovecraft was from, wherever he's from.
Providence, Rhode Island.
Providence, Rhode Island. So Cthulhu is terrorizing Providence, Rhode Island. And therefore, everyone knows that monsters exist. And that's when, you know, the Men of Letters really step up. They're like, this is my game. I will be the one to, you know, figure out what to do. So Men of Letters becomes like this staple that everyone knows about. Hunters are revered. And, you know, we get Supernatural almost 100 years earlier.
Okay. Elektra.
If anyone survived.
Yeah.
If anyone
Cthulhu was
survived.
one of the old ones. He wasn't just a monster of the week.
Well,
He
you
was
know,
a big bad.
maybe not many people survived, but we still would hopefully have Dean and Sam.
Yes, and the ones who did would be worshiping him.
Yeah, that's true.
And might be half fish, but
Developing scales and, you know, webbed feet and stuff.
yes, they would be fishmen.
I still say it could have been an episode. It could have been an
Yeah,
alternate
could have been a great episode.
Mhm. I would have liked it.
How about 2.5 Men? Maybe now they've started collecting little baby shapeshifters because they've decided this is a great idea. Let's raise little baby shapeshifters and teach them to be hunters, because they're like the best hunters ever. They can, you know, change into other people. And this is going to be the way to deal with stuff like that darn FBI agent who is absolutely convinced that they are murderers and bank robbers. And what's his name? Hendrickson.
He's hot.
If they had a shapeshifter on their side, they could maybe, you know, get a hold of Hendrickson somewhere and sit down with him for lunch and say, okay, this is our friend Fred. And Fred shakes his hand and then goes into the restroom and comes back and he looks just like Hendrickson and says, this is what happened to us. It's not really you. It's just an amazing facsimile.
They could have convinced him, and then he would have been on their side, and maybe they wouldn't have had that whole bank, whatever happened where they all died. And
That whole thing
Spoiler.
where they were being chased because they were deadly murderers, and
Yeah,
it wouldn't have helped when there were Leviathans pretending to be them running around doing murderous things, but maybe they could have convinced the FBI that they were shapeshifters doing it. It would have been a handy thing in your back pocket. And also, shapeshifters can sneak into places and lift records. They'd be really great hunters.
That's true.
they would.
I think they should grab some and raise them up to be hunters. It's a long-term project, but
Yeah.
It's nurture, not nature.
yeah, absolutely.
I like it.
Well, and that would have given Rufus and Bobby something to do in their retirement. They could have raised a baby shapeshifter.
They could have started a boys' home. They could have brought in Sonny to help. I'm sure he was bored. Maybe they could have helped fund him.
Yes. Yes.
Now here's a question: what does a baby shapeshifter look like? Is it a
Anything
blob?
it wants to.
Does it like go back and forth? I'm looking
Yeah,
like this, like
they change race, sex.
That baby.
It's great.
Yeah, didn't that baby change its appearance in that episode a couple of times?
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't
Couple
remember
times.
that. Okay.
And it changed
Yeah.
its race and its sex.
Okay.
And it really surprised them because it just did it when they weren't looking.
Right.
So in Clap Your Hands If You Believe, what if the aliens had been real?
That's what I want. I was so
You know-
disappointed when they weren't real.
What if we got a little more crossover with X-Files there, where it wasn't just fairies, but that poor guy who, remembered dancing with the alien, really did meet an alien, and it could go a lot of different ways. It could be that Sam and Dean meet the aliens and the aliens go, okay, we see that this planet is protected, we'll leave you alone. It could be that, it could go a lot of different ways, but while we're dealing with
But
the unknown,
if the X-Files agents show up, weren't they going to find Samuel really, really familiar looking?
They might, yeah. It'd be like, but you're a lot jerkier than our director, so.
so yeah, what if besides fairies, the aliens had been real?
Aliens versus fairies. Who will win?
I
Yes.
really liked it. And the aliens would have been like, y'all got all this like supernatural stuff going on. We don't deal with that purgatory, heaven, hell. We're just out here flying around. We're gonna go. Goodbye. Good.
Yeah,
Not
they
nice to
warned
me.
us that this was a bad neighborhood and we thought we'd stop off, but yeah, you're right. We're gonna put up markers now.
We're gonna go. Y'all are into some weird stuff. We're just gonna go. We're gonna go to an
The heck
asteroid
with
or something.
purgatory, heaven, hell. We also had fairies there.
That's true.
I mean, that was like a
Robert
whole
Picardo.
new thing.
Mhm.
Because I don't think we ever really got fairies again after this, did we?
No, it was
I
that
think
one
that's right.
time. Was it once enough? And we got the
Right.
magic, thing to deal with the fairies. Just throw a handful of
I
salt
love
at
that
them.
so much.
Stick
I
in
just
the
love.
microwave. But there's been some terrific fan fiction where Sam and Dean happen into fairy world. And
Yes.
there are ramifications, and Sam has to go in and save Dean from servicing Oberon.
Yeah.
And well, that's
Dean
canon.
would get
Said it.
stuck.
Yeah.
That's I have Dean. They visit Fairy, and we see Dean servicing Oberon.
I think that's
Okay.
in the HBO version.
Well, that's true. That's their True Blood crossover.
Yeah. But really, if I think that fairies were probably a little too super powerful when they already had angels and demons, and they probably just didn't know where to take that. But
But
I think they could have
wouldn't
been
the-
a very plausible other monster of the week, because there's so many different kinds of fairies.
Mhm.
And they
And
included
or-
a lot.
there's so many different kind of fairies. Couldn't the voice have formed an alliance with one of the groups of fairies? Because if we didn't get the angels and demons under control, the fairies homelands would have been impacted and in danger anyway. So perhaps we could have gotten the Fae realm involved in fighting whatever big overarching monster there was, whether it was the Leviathans or the demons or the angels or whatever. That would have been an interesting twist.
Well, the Fae could have been a spoiler on the whole apocalypse thing, because they're clearly agnostic on the idea of heaven and hell and angels and demons, and they didn't want the world destroyed in some apocalypse. And so maybe they come in, you know, like the United Nations and go, hey, wait a second, guys, we can't allow this to happen, and we're powerful enough to stop you.
But they
That
are the
could have been
Fae,
interesting.
and they can't be trusted.
Right.
And
They
those
don't-
were clearly unseelie Fae that they were showing on the program.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And they are out for themselves. So
True.
you would have to find a way to get a bargain they would keep to. And it would have to
Yeah.
have no way that they could weasel out of it because they saw a better bargain.
So sort of like dealing with
Yeah.
Crowley.
Yeah, you'd have to get
Fairies are
Crowley to write
worse.
the contract.
Yeah.
You know, Crowley actually mellowed a bit, but fairies are way worse, really.
Now,
You don't
is
want
the
to
Fey
play around
realm,
with the Fey realm.
is the Fey realm supposed to be like another universe? Or
Kinda.
is it?
It exists. It's another plane of existence that touches ours and sort of sits on top of it, but you can't be in two places at once.
Okay. Because I was going to say, if they have their own realm, maybe they won't care what happens to Earth. You know, would their realm be touched if, you know, there's a apocalypse? I don't know. Maybe they're in their own little pocket.
Back to you, Carol.
Gosh, I am close to tapped out here. Wow.
Oh, we are close to out of time. So maybe
Yeah.
I'll just throw it out and say, did anyone have one you were holding on to that we haven't had a chance to talk about? Because glance at the time and go, we are pretty well out of time. Yeah, Lola?
In episode 3, The Third Man, there's a scene where Sam is exercising with his shirt off. What if he just keeps doing that for the whole hour?
Or we get to see more of Sam's fitness regimen.
We did that, yeah. I rewound it a few times. I was like, let's get it.
And on that note,
I know,
And
I know we did Live Free or Twy Hard. I was sort of curious, what would happen if Sam had been the one that got bitten and Dean had desperately tried to stop it and failed?
would it have made much difference though? Because at that point, Sam doesn't have a soul already.
Well, yeah, but then he'd be
He
a
can bite
soulless
people now.
vampire, and Dean doesn't know there's a cure. And would Sam want the cure?
Wait, no.
Yeah.
And would soulless Sam be able to avoid drinking blood?
that would
Sam would have wanted the cure because vampires can't walk around in the daylight, and soulless Sam wouldn't have wanted to give up all of, you know, he wouldn't want to have to give up half the day to be able to pursue whatever it was he was going to pursue. So I think he'd want the cure for very hedonistic reasons, not for any moral reasons.
Okay.
But I love that idea. And what
Yeah.
would have happened? Dean would have found the nearest vampire to bite him, to turn him. No, which would have been Sam, because Sam would have turned him because he was soulless and he wanted the company. So there you go. That's what would have happened. That was a great idea.
As opposed to
And then they could have
Dean
crossed over
helping
with
him
the
find
Vampire
the cure.
Diaries. And Dean
Those two different versions, because if Sam bites Dean, then Dean needs Sam's blood to cure him. That gets really weird and sort of creepy.
Well, on that note, let's go around, let everybody say where we can find you online. Carol?
You can find me on Facebook in the continual panels and continual group, and also in the TFWNC group. You can find me on Twitter under true_firesign10. On Instagram and on AO3, it is just firesign10. And as Ellis Colton, you can find all of my social media links at card.co. And also you can go to Amazon and check out my debut romance novella, Prescription for Love.
Very good. Melissa?
You can find me on the TFWNC Facebook group and on Twitter, Tin Hat Daydreams. Mind the description on that one.
Very good. Lola?
I'm Lola Lariscy. I have a website, lolalarissy.com, and I'm on Blue Sky, though nothing really is happening for me right now. So if you want to follow me there, I'm Lola Writes, and I'm also on Instagram and Facebook.
And Elektra?
I'm on, oh God, my website is untilmidnight.com, and I'm fairly active on Mastodon. You can find me there at electra@wandering.shop.
And I'm Gail Z. Martin and Morgan Bryce. You can find me at the .com of both of those. I'm on most of the main social medias under one or both of those names. So if you spell them right, you'll find me. I do run the Supernatural TFWNC group here on Facebook. I'm a columnist for the Winchester Family Business blog, but most of the time I'm here on Continual. So thank you so much to our wonderful, wonderful panelists. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There will be more Supernatural coming up soon. So we'll see you online.